The following is a local resident producer's program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Media Services, the City of Oshkosh, or Time Warner Cable.
Welcome to Eye on Oshkosh. Cheryl, Hentz, and Dan Rylance here, and the war in Iraq is over. People have started coming home from there, and in fact, I think most of the troops probably are home, but we still have fairly good-sized presence in Afghanistan and other places in the Middle East. But we wanted to talk to a couple of military veterans, two folks from our area who have served in the Middle East, and just kind of get a real sense from them of what it's like to be over there. We've all seen things on TV and heard the stories, but nothing like actually sitting down and talking with someone firsthand about what goes on over there and what their personal experiences have been. So we're very pleased to welcome Randy Locke to the show. Randy is Sergeant First Class with the Wisconsin Army National Guard, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And Major Amy Messner, and you are with the U.S. Marine Corps,
yes.
Correct? Okay. Well, welcome to both of you.
Yeah,
We
welcome to the
appreciate
show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, are you both still active in the military, or are you out now?
I am. I'm still in the Wisconsin Army National Guard.
Okay, all right. What about you, Amy?
I'm out.
You're out.
Yes,
All
I'm
right.
a full-time teacher now.
So you can't go back.
No.
All right. Well, we appreciate, first of all, you both being here, and certainly we appreciate, your service to our nation and our nation's people. So thank you for what you've done for all the years that you did it. Let's start by finding out, what prompted you to go into the service. Was it college benefits, or whoever wants to take that first? Doesn't matter.
I joined in 1982. That was a long time ago. And at the time, it was the best option that the judge offered me. It was my reason for joining at the time.
That the judge offered you?
The judge offered it. They don't do that anymore, is my understanding. But at the time, I had some traffic tickets piling up and different things going on. And he said, well, we can drop all that if you join a branch of the armed forces for at least a year. It's worked out really well for me. And I guess it's not why you join, it's why you stay. It's what's important.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What about you, Amy?
I was actually a junior in high school, and the recruiters had come in and showed us some videos, and I thought, well, that looks kind of interesting, and trying to decide what do I want to do. And I ended up getting an ROTC scholarship and went to Madison, and then went into the Marine Corps from there, and just wanted to get out of Wisconsin and travel and see the world and serve my country.
Okay.
So you graduated from college with a second lieutenant and went in?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And how long were you in?
I was in for a total of 6.5 years.
Oh, okay.
So, and then I actually got out in 2000. I got my commission in 1996, got out in 2000, but then was recalled after 9/11 happened and did 2 more years. So.
Yeah. And you're retired with the rank of major?
Yes.
That's pretty commendable.
That is.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
One of the things they always tell you, I'm sure, when you're taking your vows of what you're going to do, your oath of service and so forth, that there is that possibility that you could be called to serve in a situation of war, perhaps. But I'm sure people always think, well, yeah, it could happen, but probably not going to happen. Did those same kinds of thoughts occur to you that, it could, but it probably won't?
Yes. I know for a long time I was in like, oh, we won't get called up, we won't get called up. But after 9/11, it's like, well, we will get called up. And it's like, well, if you haven't got called up yet, you're going to get called up pretty soon. everybody got their turn, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
I think when I was going through training, it was, you know, you definitely took things serious as far as I want to make sure that I'm prepared, but you still didn't think that you were going to go to war. And after I got out, you know, nobody ever gets recalled. That never happened. I mean, I think it wasn't until Vietnam when they had actually involuntarily recalled people, and I was part of the initial force that had been involuntarily recalled and had to come back in. I got orders in the mail that said, show up in 2 weeks. So it was definite, but I kind of knew, you know, same thing, 9/11 had just happened. You see all these reserve units around you are getting recalled, and I was living in San Diego at the time, so I knew what was going on and kind of expected it to happen. Too.
Now, Randy, you're a family man, of course. Your wife works on the show, and one of your sons does. What about you, Amy? Do you have a husband and children, or
no?
Okay. But you got parents, and so
yes.
Either way, this is a difficult thing for family members too. When you get called up, especially with that kind of short notice. 2 weeks is not a lot of time to, you know, get basically your life in order. Not only from a bill-paying standpoint and a job standpoint, but you know, getting things in order in the event, God forbid, something should happen to you too. How do you possibly wrap your head around all of that mentally and emotionally, but then enough so also to get everything done, you know, physically that you need to get done before you ship off?
Well, I think for me it was, you know, you just try to take it one day at a time, and you know, okay, nobody can give me answers right now. I know I need to report in 2 weeks, and then you know, they'll kind of give you orders then on where you're going and what you're doing, and nobody knew. So it was kind of, I know my family was definitely worried, obviously, with 9/11 had just happened, you know, within a couple of years, and, you know, you knew all these military units were being recalled and sent to Iraq, and so I know they were very worried that that was what was going to happen. Fortunately, I ended up staying at Camp Pendleton the whole time. I was processing other reservists that were being sent over to Iraq. So it was an interesting time, though, and definitely it is. You just try to take it one day at a time, and let your family know that you know, keep in communication with them as much as you can.
And so you did do some time in the Middle East, did you not, or were you always
yes.
stateside?
I was on ship for 6 months, so I was deployed with the 15th MU as part of the MSSG 15, and that was from for 6 months in 2000. So it was still before. We were still kind of in peacetime. We had, we were in the Gulf for about 3 months. We did training in Kuwait, Qatar, and Oman, and it was an interesting time. We did training with the Oman troops there, and it was interesting being a female in that perspective, working with their military.
Yeah. What about you, Randy? How many times were you over there? Was it just once?
Just once, okay. And I didn't go. We didn't get called up till 2005. And so, yeah, we had pretty good forewarning that it was going to happen. Even like the year before, we were like, well, the train up that we're doing is prepping us for getting a mobilization. And then they gave us the warning order like 3 or 4 months beforehand. So that gave us time to get everything in order. And we'd already been getting stuff in order. And part of Army was making sure that we had our stuff in order, you know, home life and everything. For me, as soon as I told Amy I was going to get called up, she's like, well, I don't want to live here in the house that we're living in. And she's, I'm going to be busy enough raising our 3 kids. I don't want to be dealing with 6 tenants because I owned 3 duplexes at the time. And I had to agree she was right. And so we put all the duplexes on the market for sale and bought a different house. It was a very busy time right leading up to getting deployed.
And as it turns out, a good friend of mine actually bought your duplexes.
That's right.
So, so I know those properties. But go ahead, Dan. You know.
This maybe is a dumb question, but I'm going to ask. Why do you think you were there? In hindsight, and what's, I mean, what?
Well, I think being in the military, you never try to question too much of the political aspect of it, and we're there to help out and especially with, from my perspective, you know, we're there to help rebuild and try to get their schools back in running and their local government just operating, and trying to help them get on their feet.
What do you think now?
That's a tough question.
I read and I don't mean to
Sure.
embarrass, but
No.
that 40% of those military who served in Iraq really have second thoughts about why we were there. And I'm just maybe shift to you. How would you answer that?
Well, I could end with a question that I don't think the Arab Spring would have happened this last year if we hadn't stood up in Iraq and shown, like, hey, you could have a better life. You could have a democracy in your country. You know, as soon as one dictator falls, it makes some of the other countries think, like, well, if they can do it, you know, we can get rid of our guy too.
So long term, that the investment might be that all of those dictators conceivably could be gone. We don't know what's going to take place after the dictators. It could be, but at least there's been a change. Yeah. I have a question on veteran programs, and this really hit home. About 2 months ago, a nephew of my brother-in-law walked into an ER unit in Grand Forks, North Dakota, and wrote on his forearm his blood type and said, "I want my organs donated," and took out a pistol and killed himself. He had escaped from a veterans hospital in Fargo, North Dakota, a mental ward 4 weeks before. They never put a tracer on him, which they were supposed to do, and the VA hospital didn't pay 1 penny for his funeral. It just, I guess that's an editorial, but do you have any stories about how well or how not so well veterans are being treated by the VA and other people when they get back?
I've been treated very well.
Okay.
I've had a lot of educational benefits that they've helped pay for me to go back to school and become a teacher. And I have not taken part in the Troops to Teachers program, but there's been lots of benefits, I know. And as far as last year, I had to take a leave of absence from teaching and be in school full time, and it helped pay for, I wouldn't have been able to do it without my VA benefits.
How about you?
When we came back, redeploying, you have to go through a whole week of demobilization, and you take tests, and they, including mental health tests, see how you're doing, that kind of thing. A lot of guys, it's like, well, the sooner we get through this, the sooner we get out of here, so you try to pencil whip through as much as you can, but they push back on that and try to prevent that from happening too much. My time overseas, I was in Kuwait the whole time. It wasn't like I suffered any of the extreme experiences that a lot of our soldiers have had. But I do know the Army takes it seriously and tries to...
Your contact person as a vet is the veterans officer in this county. That's where you would go, and there's one in every county in the United States, I believe. So that would be, if you were going to deal with the Veterans Administration, you would start with the county officer in the courthouse. Okay. That's what I thought. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to kind of come back to that a little bit later, but let's find out about your experiences over there. Amy, you said that you trained with some of the military over there. Knowing the training that you went through with our military, what was it like training with them? Are they similar in how they train their military forces, or are they worlds apart, just like they're so many miles apart?
We were only with the Oman military for about a week, so it wasn't, a lot of training that we had. But I would say, for the most part, it's, from what I saw, it was similar. They were similarly prepared and for the training that we did.
Do they have? Oh, go ahead.
Where were you in Oman? In Muscat?
Yes.
Were you? I was there last year.
It's beautiful.
It is, yeah. I'm sorry, but
For the desert.
That's what I meant.
Do they have women in their military?
None that I saw. Everybody I saw.
So how seriously did they take women in our military forces?
I didn't have to really directly interact with them or say this is what we're doing. So I was in part of the meetings to make sure that we were providing the logistical support that needed to be provided, but it wasn't. They didn't really have to take any orders from me, so there wasn't a lot of interaction.
Okay.
So it wasn't uncomfortable or anything, I think, for
Oman
anybody.
is not Saudi Arabia.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
There's a great difference in terms of equality between men
Yeah,
and women.
yeah.
And then there is in
Just the
Saudi
fact that they
Arabia.
didn't even have any women in their military, I thought maybe they would have some negative attitudes or some chauvinistic type attitudes. Nothing personal. But, did you have to, during any of your time in the Middle East, obviously their customs and their culture is very different from ours. How did that factor in with how you had to behave or perform, or did it not because you were in a military environment?
When we were doing our military training, I think all of us felt, you know, it was mostly the U.S. military that you're around. You're in the base in Kuwait City, or we were out on a training base in Kuwait, and so I think the only other times when you're in their society, we had a couple of Liberty Days in Bahrain, but that's again a naval port, so they're kind of used to the military that's there. But we were told to wear long sleeves, wear pants. You know, you can't wear shorts, even though it's 80 degrees outside and things like that. But it was interesting too. One of my friends actually had an allergic reaction, and so then she had to go to a hospital. We had to get her, she had a very severe allergic reaction, and we got treated very well. There in the hospital, she had very good treatment, and before we got her back to ship. So.
Okay.
We were told not to stare.
Not to stare.
Not to stare.
We were mostly all men at the Kuwait Naval Base. There were some women there too, but we were an all-male unit, and we didn't get much in the way of Liberty Days or anything, but I got up to the mall in Kuwait City, and before that you got the brief, like, there's going to be women there. Don't look at them. Just don't be looking at them. You know, that's not what we're here for. That's not what we're about.
But at the same time, I mean, you are human, and you're away from your family, and, you know, it's not like you're trying to make it anything sexual, but, I mean, the natural reaction, I think, would be to look at, for longer than a passing glance, someone from the opposite sex. I mean, was that difficult?
Also, I mean, I worked with Kuwaitis, you know, Kuwait Navy, Kuwait Army personnel, but that's all men. So, yeah, I mean, it was more of a cultural interest, not so much I'm going to scope out these chicks or anything.
Somehow I don't think Amy would appreciate that either.
When you're out in the town there too, all their women are, you know, dressed with, they're wrapped up, fully clothed. I mean, you can only see their eyes, so it's not like there's anything to admire.
It's only imagination.
Yeah. Anyway, so I think and I would say too that you're told not to stare, but you obviously look at them just because it's different than what we're used to seeing.
Exactly.
Right.
You know, when we see women reporters going over there, a lot of times they will wrap themselves up as well. You didn't do that, though?
No, we didn't have to at all.
Okay.
No, but we were kind of told to wear, you know, not to wear outlandish clothing and kind of stick with the khakis and collared shirts and long sleeves and.
The bus driver that took us to the mall at Kuwait City said he'd seen the last time he waited out on the bus. He said the last time he was there, a carload of girls pulls up, teenage girls, and they're head to toe in the black and the veil and everything. As they get out of the car, take all that stuff off, throw it in the trunk, and they've got jeans and T-shirts and all Western clothes on. They couldn't get out of the house
without the
full thing. But as soon as they get to the mall, they're going to be Western dressed.
Yeah. Was it, I mean, obviously it is so different. Did you have difficulty kind of adjusting to that for the time that you were there, or did you adjust relatively easily?
There wasn't a lot of differences. I thought there was more similarities between us and the people that I met, the Kuwaiti people, and that, you know, I always think, oh, everybody over there is going to be hardcore Islam with their religion, and a lot of people went, you know, like around here, some are more religious than others.
What's it like on a really hot day in Kuwait with full gear?
It's smoking hot.
Smoking hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be a drain.
Just standing still, sweat just rolling off you the whole time.
Yeah.
I was lucky I was on the midnight shift from midnight till noon, but the last 4 hours from 8 till noon, it was already really hot.
When I was in Oman, they said there are 3 levels: hot, hotter, and hottest. And you know, I was only in the hot period, but I can't imagine working over there in the hottest. I mean, it had to be incredibly. How much water do you drink a day?
Oh, gallons.
Gallons. Yeah, it's just amazing, huh?
They'd call over the radio, drink water. You know, everybody that heard it has to drink water at that time, just staying hydrated.
Does it get cold at night at all?
Yes.
Yeah.
In the winter, it got real cold.
Extreme.
I know the one day that we were there, we had about a week where it was extremely hot, and we didn't train at all during the day. We trained in the early morning and late evening, but then the afternoon, you did nothing. And it just felt like you were in an oven. it was almost 120 degrees, and you were trying to be just in your t-shirt and your cami pants. And
Yeah. The only good thing is there's no humidity. I mean, very little humidity, right?
Well,
or was there?
no,
you-
I was at the Kuwait Naval Base right
Oh,
on
I
the
suppose you were
Gulf,
in the
and
by the
so
water.
yeah, there'd be nights I get up at 11, step outside, and still over 100 degrees out, 100% humidity. Like, oh, it's gonna be a crappy night. That,
yeah.
if the wind's blowing the wrong way, yeah, I would stay hot.
Curb your eating habits at all with all the heat, or not necessarily?
No, like being night shift, I end up eating a lot just to, you know, trying to stay awake kind of stuff.
I would say yes.
Yes, would you? Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't eat as much.
Okay.
Drank a lot of water and still felt dehydrated.
Yeah.
Not to get into specifics of how the military trains, because you know, I'm sure that that's somewhat confidential and so forth. But you know, I know someone who works with a woman whose husband was in the Middle East, and he actually to this day has nightmares, and he's got a lot of emotional and psychological problems because he was in a tank. And, you know, these people were putting children in the middle of the street to act as, like, human shields. We hear about them doing that with women quite frequently, too. And, you know, he had orders to just continue going. I mean, he was running down little children. I mean, obviously, neither one of you had to deal with something like that. But, you know, how do you mentally prepare yourself for doing things that we would, under normal circumstances, consider pretty inhumane and very tragic? How do you do that?
Well, I don't think you can prepare for running over kids with a tank. I prepare for my job, and I'm a forward observer, so it's my job to blow things up with artillery and mortar shells and close air support. But that's what I'm trained to do, and yeah, prepare for it every day, as far as that's what I've been tasked to do.
Maybe prepare isn't the best word, but it seems to me you kind of have to step out of your role, if you can, as a human being, and just go into soldier mode. You know, if that makes sense, and just say, okay, this is my task. I have to just focus on my orders, and that's it. I mean, is that kind of what you have to do?
They have battle drills that you train on all the time, which it's pretty much, you train on them, it's because it has to be a reaction, whereas it's just automatic, you know, react to contact, react to ambush, the things that you're going to do, you know, return fire, get down, call it out, move out. That's the kind of stuff that you don't have time to think about, or I'm going to go do this, or part A or part B, or look at any paperwork. You just have to understand, oh, this is happening, this is what I do, and you react to it. As far as other things going on with the training, they're getting into resiliency training, which is trying to teach people a better way, trying to teach soldiers how you only have so much control over what happens to you, but you have all the control over how you deal with it. And they've been pushing that real hard in the last year and a half in my brigade.
Leonard Pitts, I don't know whether you read him, he's a columnist for the Miami Herald, and he writes in the Northwestern op-ed piece always on Saturday. And preparing for this show, last Saturday he had an essay on war. And I just wanted to read the last two sentences of his column. You don't have to respond, but he said, "War is a different universe. What seems acceptable there is appalling here. It's not too much to say that war is a form of madness." That's the way he ended his column. I just thought, well, it kind of fits with what we're talking about here tonight.
Yeah,
You don't have to comment,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think you just try to train as best as you can, and then, and like you said, when you get those orders, you just try to maintain your focus on doing making the best decisions that are going to keep you and the people around you safe, and carrying out the orders to the best of your ability. It's not, you try not to think about, you know, any of the other things that are going on except that.
Yeah, yeah. And so, and Dan sort of, you know, touched on this before, when you do come back home, if you've been in a situation like this one gentleman with the tank and so forth and the kids, or in your case, blowing things up when you don't necessarily know what's in a building that you may be blowing up, or maybe you guys have intelligence that you do know what's in there, but or if there are any people in there. But when you come back, you know, do you feel that our government does provide enough emotional support for folks who have really had some horrific experiences while in the military?
I would say yes. I know people that have come back from harder deployments than I had, you know, a lot harder deployment than I had, and have gone and gotten help through the VA. Like 2009, 2010, I had a sergeant that had come back from an Afghanistan deployment, and good guy, great squad leader, liked him a lot, but he was having problems. Typically, he said, it's fine, you know, you get back, everything's great, everything's happy, and about 4 to 6 months after you're back, that's about the time your brain starts going, hey, I'm in a place now where I'm safe, I'm gonna need to start thinking about all this stuff that I compartmentalized, and when I didn't have time to think about it, and that's when the problems start coming up, not being able to sleep, nightmares, crowds, you know, big problems with crowds, and he's getting help with the VA. He got an early retirement from the military, and as far as I know, he's doing pretty good. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of that going around.
Mm-hmm. Now, is it possible that you could get called up again if there's, you know, God forbid something else should happen, or, you know, you've done a couple different tours, or you just did one, right?
I just did one.
Yeah. So could you get called up again, or are you done?
Well, I'm still in, so I
Yeah.
could get called up again.
Okay.
Although I certainly downplay any expectation of that happening, because my wife's here.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And you're out,
I'm
so
out.
you don't have to worry about it, do you? If there are some young folks out there watching this show, I mean, we still have, you know, when you turn 18, you still have to register with the Selective Service. And now, do women have to register as well, or is it just the guys?
Just guys, but.
So we haven't quite advanced to that part yet when it comes to women's lib, right? And maybe there's a lot of girls out there that think that that's a good thing. But if there's someone who is actually thinking about, hey, I might want to go this route, or they're on the fence, what would you say to them to encourage them to do this, or would you?
I would. I had a very good experience. I enjoyed everything that I did. I met a lot of really good friends, and you learn. You learn a lot about life and yourself, and the leadership qualities that you get in the military. I think are marketable skills when you're trying to find a job, especially in an economy like this. And they hear that that you were in the military at some point in time. They know that you're going to be somebody that's going to show up to work on time, and what skill sets that you have to bring. And I would definitely encourage it. I think it was a great opportunity for me.
Ready?
Yeah, if you're smart but you're not ready to go to college yet, that'd be a great time to join. I'd say join now because they're cutting down the size of all branches of the service, and they're starting to get picky. With a bad economy, they can really raise the standards on who they want, who they don't want, which is a good thing, unless you're trying to get in.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you both for being here.
Very informative. Thank you.
You know, we're glad that you came back safe and sound, and thank you again for your service. We appreciate it very much.
Oh, do we have a minute?
Just sit tight. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, Jim Simmons from UW-Oshkosh will be here, and we'll talk about the upcoming elections. We'll be right back.
Every year, the U.S. Department of the Treasury receives about 1.4 million reports of problems with paper checks. Checks can be lost, stolen, or delayed. If you still receive Social Security payments by paper check, Treasury wants you to know about a safer, more convenient way to get your money. the Direct Express Prepaid Debit MasterCard. The Direct Express card is new and is available to anyone receiving Social Security benefits, even if you don't have a bank account. Your monthly benefits will be automatically placed onto your card account each month on the day your money is due. While other debit cards cost money, it is possible to use the Direct Express card for free to make purchases, pay bills, and get cash at thousands of locations nationwide. There are no sign-up or monthly account fees. No more waiting for the mail or worrying about lost or stolen checks. Call 1-877-212-9991 or visit www.usdirectexpress.com.
We're going to be talking about the upcoming election, both the spring election and the recall election for governor. So why don't we start there, because that's what everybody's been talking about. You know, what, I mean, just this week, as we got ready to prepare for this show, I think it was just yesterday, in fact, a judge has given the Government Accountability Board an extra 30 days, I guess, to verify the signatures that were submitted on petitions. Do you think that'll be enough time to get this all done?
Well, I wish I had a definitive answer for you, but they're using the software that they just purchased for the first time.
Right.
If you've ever used character recognition software, it's bad enough just to write regular writing, but since you have to read cursive, it's going to make a lot of mistakes, so you're going to have eyes on the ground. And it's very time consuming given 1.9 million signatures.
Yeah.
Governor, lieutenant governor, and 4 senators.
Yeah.
Plus, everyone was watching. I guess the webcam is very popular. I haven't watched it, but I hear that many people are. And Republicans have 10, 11,000 people, they claim, have volunteered to review the signatures. So all eyes on the petitions at this point.
Well, what do you make, Jim, of the fact that a judge has, ordered the GAB to more closely scrutinize these petition signatures than I think any other signature on any other election form ever? And in fact, I mean, they're responsible for weeding out things when, with anything else, it's always been, the person who wants to challenge it, it's their responsibility to challenge a signature or signatures. This seems to be a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, it is. And the Government Accountability Board is under a lot of pressure, criticized for political partisanship, even though, in comparison to what preceded it, this looks like you couldn't go too much further in nonpartisanship. 6 retired judges and all the scrutiny, PDF files. You can, if you're interested, you can go through them yourself. So, but if you hear the drumbeat of talk radio, I mean, you would imagine that there's massive corruption here, and that, untold numbers of signatures are faulty, fraudulently collected, and they're, with all the people volunteering to review them, you know that there are quite a few people who believe that. Now, why the Democrats would want to do that, since it would clearly undercut their effort, isn't clear to me, but nevertheless.
Is there any doubt with the huge number of signatures that we will have a recall election?
Oh, very little doubt.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why, I mean, the Democrats had several reasons to collect over 1 million signatures. One of them was that the claim that the threshold was too low,
right.
25%. So in fact, they got nearly half.
Yeah, this is like Apple earnings this last quarter.
Yeah.
They just blew it away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, they wanted to get something close to the number that
Sure.
The governor was elected by. Actually, it was an impressive effort. Most states allow much more time. It's typically 90 to 150 days you get, and this was Wisconsin. I mean, Christmas was somewhere in between, so the people on the other side were clearly dedicated too to be out in the cold and doing what they did to do the collecting. And as you know, there were controversies locally and elsewhere of intimidation and on both sides of this issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we're probably looking at an election sometime early summer?
Probably midsummer.
Midsummer. Okay.
Much more is going to go on. There are going to be, of course, there will be challenges. I mean, my fear is that you've got all these volunteers to oversee the petitions, and in the recall of the senators, there was one case in Green Bay where the Democrats were calling those who had signed the petition to see if they had actually signed. As there were claims of fraud there too. I've got the feeling that the same thing will happen with the million people who signed this petition too, that you can expect a phone call and some.
Do you expect a Democratic primary which will push the actual election back a little bit?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, there are just too many candidates who seem to be interested, and the fact that so many signatures were collected gives, promise that you might successfully be elected governor. And clearly there are a number of prominent Democrats who have coveted that office for some time.
Okay.
It's a little, I think, disingenuous for Governor Walker to sit there and say, on the one hand, he and his people are appealing all these signatures and this, that, and the other, and, hell, he even wanted to throw out illegible signatures, which would have meant mine was going to be thrown out if he had gotten his way there, because you can't make out mine at all. But you do have to write your name and address on the line that precedes the signature. So I don't know why he would have wanted to go to such an extreme step. But then now he's saying, well, with this many signatures that have been gathered up, it's clear that there's going to be a recall, so I'm just anxious to get on with this. Well, then stop appealing every little thing and stop bellyaching about it.
The governor has probably been looking at the polls as everyone else has. And right now, he's an odds-on favorite to win re-election. I mean, he's unpopular. The use of a recall seems to be relatively unpopular too. I mean, opinion surveys show people don't want to change the process, but the use in this case seems to be unpopular. But the longer this is delayed, if the economy doesn't recover, and if any of the scandals revolving around Walker while he was county executive in Milwaukee catch, then going to an election sooner rather than later is probably in his best interest.
Okay. Well, then he should stop appealing stuff, shouldn't he?
Well, I'm not sure that he's not the only one being recalled. And although I would say right now, since he won the preceding election, that his strongest challengers are probably the one he beat in the last election, Tom Barrett or Dave Obey, former congressman. That, I just think that there may seem to be some hypocrisy here, but this is why they call it politics, after all.
Okay, fair enough.
I want to look at the ballot. When the governor and lieutenant governor run in normal elections, they run together.
Right.
Now, when we go to the recall election, will be there a separate ballot for the governor and a separate ballot for the lieutenant governor?
I would imagine so, yes.
Okay, let's proceed further then. We could have a Republican governor and a Democratic lieutenant governor, or vice versa, couldn't we?
Not so far in the past in Wisconsin. That was always. I mean, this is a recent phenomenon.
Yeah,
where
but it's unconstitutional to have it separate now. So how do they reconcile that?
Well, Dan, maybe you should go back to law school. There seems to be a lot of money that law firms are making. One of the things that is going to come out of this is there are going to be the media is going to make a windfall out of this. I mean, the governor has been running commercials continuously. He's managed, one of the reasons why he's doing so well, I think, is that, you know, he and third-party groups have been running ads in his favor, so he's had a chance to tell his story. While the Democrats were collecting signatures, the governor was talking about how what he has done has worked. And then there were other commercials during Christmas time where he and his family, you know, give good wishes to the community. So essentially, we've been in campaign mode since the beginning of the petition drive. Only one side has been in campaign mode. The other has been preparing to achieve an election.
Okay, Your Honor, as a young lawyer, isn't a separate ballot for governor and lieutenant governor unconstitutional?
Dan, I'm not a lawyer, and you know, I wish I were. I wish I worked for Michael Best and company, because.
Well, just put on your hat for a minute. That's not a. I mean, it is a reasonable question, isn't it?
I think so.
I mean, they got to run together regularly, but they're going to run separately because there's a recall election?
Well, a decision was made that they had to.
Okay, all right.
So obviously, some judges think it's the constitutional route.
Okay, all right.
But what really are the odds? I mean, certainly it could happen, but what really do you think the odds would be that, you know, Governor Walker would get successfully trounced on in an election, but Kleefisch would win re-election, or vice versa?
They're small, but not impossible.
Yeah.
If you looked at the signatures, they collected over 1 million against Walker. People didn't feel as strongly about Kleefisch, and they only got 850,000 against her. So oftentimes you see people go to an election, there's one position they care about, then there's a drop-off. You know, and so the lower you go down the ballot, the fewer votes there are that are cast. So you could imagine a situation in which there was a big drop-off for lieutenant governor where people just didn't care, because after all, the office isn't terribly important.
No. How many legislative recall elections are they?
There are 4.
4, and they're in recalls of 4 Republican senators?
Exactly.
Okay, and one of them is the majority leader of the Senate.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now he's safe.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah.
They did this out of sour grapes, I think. They just, I mean, the Democrats really don't like Fitzgerald.
Right, and he's also a candidate for U.S. Senate, right?
Van Wengard, Moulton, and Galloway, they're eminently defeatable.
They are.
I mean, I mean, the interesting thing about the recalls that just we recently held was that the 6 Republicans being recalled, only one of them was in a Democratic district.
Okay, La Crosse.
Yeah, La Crosse.
Yeah,
and actually the Democrats who were recalled were less safe than the Republicans. So this time the Democrats are going after 3 Republicans who are in Democratic-leaning districts who were elected in this wave election of 2010. Okay. So, I mean, right now I would say the chances are very good that you could see the state Senate flip. Now, even if it did, doesn't make a lot of difference because there's not going to be any business conducted for.
They've done it all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Should we turn to local? Or you want to do more on?
Well, I just want to talk a little bit about Kathleen Falk. I mean, so far she's the only one who's really formally announced, I think. You know, and everybody, you know, I've read so many comments where people are saying, is this the best you guys can come up with? Blah, 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 blah. You know, they kind of said that about Jess King, too, running against Brandon Hopper. And yet, you know, the political mindset was just so great against Hopper that she got elected. Could that possibly happen to Falk, depending on who else comes out of the woodwork?
Could be. I think, you know, the candidate that the Democrats put up in a nonpartisan race for state Supreme Court justice was weak.
And she almost won.
And you know, you know, 7,000 votes. I mean, very close election. So, and Falk is a much better candidate. I mean, in fact, she doesn't do all that much worse than Obie or Barrett. So, could she be elected? You know, you can't know about whether the economy in Wisconsin is still going to be heading in the wrong direction while the national economy seems to be modestly, you know, making gains. You don't know what the John Doe investigations are going to produce. We haven't seen yet the long-term impact of the changes made in the public schools and in cities and so on. I mean, you know, as time goes by, we're likely to see more of that. Right now, it looks as if nothing had happened.
Yeah.
You doubt she'll get the nomination, though, without a challenge?
No.
Yeah. Okay. You've been on before, and I think, I hope I'm doing this, you say there are changed elections and there's continuity elections. Clearly the Common Council race this year is a continuity election. Have you ever seen it where really basically the only candidates running are the three incumbents in the years you've been here?
Yes, I have.
Have you? Yeah.
I've been here over 20 years,
Yeah.
so I've seen elections where there
Yeah.
was very little contest, or
recent.
if there has been, you know, if there was another candidate in the race, it was,
Okay.
you know, perennial.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Why do you think we have a continuity election this year for Common Council?
I think for the same reason why you're not going to see a great deal of contest in the school district. I mean, let's face it. Running and holding the position on the city council or on the school board is unforgiving. I mean, you would only do it out of civic duty. You have children in school, so you really want a contribution. You're unhappy with the school, the way they've treated your children, or you have some bone to pick with the city over garbage collection or something,
Right.
which would cause you. But most of the time it's civic duty. It doesn't pay anything. It's not a stepping stone to any higher office. Most people don't move up. I mean, Just King, you know, and our county executive are exceptions to the rule, but by and large, most people don't, you know, move from city council and move up into the state legislature or governor's office. In the best of times, it's not really a very pleasing job to have, you know, citizens come up and complain about whatever their beef is with you, and have people coming in because they don't want their district boundaries changed, or they think their school is deteriorating and you're at fault for it. So you're not really getting much out of this. And this is positively the worst time, because not only the usual issues about school boundaries, school size, you know, school programs, but you're getting severe budget cuts. You're getting collective bargaining is gone. So now, and your employees, their income has been reduced, you know, by 8–10%, and so they're not happy either. The student population, you know, is declining, either because of change in birth rates, family size, or simply because now students have more choice. So in the best of times, it doesn't seem to me either of those are terribly attractive jobs. Under these circumstances, who would want it?
Yeah, I can see the worst of times for the school board right now. I'm not sure I see that quite as strongly on the Common Council. I think it's sort of a non-issue city right now. There really are no really major issues facing the city. And I think the city manager, you may disagree, is in a stronger position than any city manager has been in this city for a long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
he has really survived and kept that city manager type government very strongly.
Take the school district again. First, you have, you know, superintendent. I mean, he had a history of staying short periods of time and moving on quickly. And I told some of the school board members that was likely to happen with him. I mean, I'm not sure moving to a CISA 8 in Brilliant is a step upward, but that indicates to me that maybe the job was something more than he really wanted himself. But remember, too, you're now going to have to rate teachers. No longer collective bargaining agreements. You're going to have to evaluate them. The governor is going to come back with a school rating system of A through F and a teacher rating system of A through F. Without agreements or known ways of proceeding, you're going to have to develop a handbook and internal rules to evaluate people's work. And the same is true with the city among the unionized employees.
There are three other things on the April ballot. There's a presidential primary, and there's 2 referendums. What will this do to turnout, and any projections on the fate of the referendums?
Well, the first is the, you know, anyone who says that they know what's happening in the Republican presidential race probably
Doesn't.
Won't next week.
Yeah.
But right now, the smart money is still on Romney. I looked at in trade just before the Irish political projections market, and the smart money is still on Romney at 85%. Gingrich gained a bump from the Florida primary, and he's actually running ahead in the polls nationwide right now, but his bump seemed to have been very short-lived. And the Republican establishment is coming out and decrying the prospects. Because right now the generic polls show that Democrats should regain the House. Now, that's a generic poll. It's not an actual
person on person.
Person on person.
Yeah.
So normally I would say that the Wisconsin primary would be irrelevant. There'll be 30
it's already
states.
Over with.
The 30 states would have already voted, but here's what might make it relevant.
Okay.
I think when it comes down to Romney versus Gingrich, I think one of those will come out the clear victor. And this talk about a brokered convention and other candidates getting in isn't going to happen. Most of those other potential candidates have already endorsed someone.
Yeah.
They'd have to back out. It's hard to broker a convention when the deadlines for, registration. The ballot is already fixed in Wisconsin. You can't put anyone else on the ballot. However, one of the things that will happen is that Ron Paul is in for the long term. So he's going to be trying to collect as many delegates as he can. He's hoping for 500-600 delegates so he can go to the Republicans and promoting his libertarian agenda. And so that will make for an interesting convention. And we have some Paulites in this area and in Wisconsin. It's a good state for him. So that can draw people out, I think. And so to that extent, it's going to be relevant even if Romney and Gingrich aren't still contesting.
So it's a higher turnout election than a normal April
It will
election.
be, yeah. And in fact, recall elections are higher turnout. We might see a higher turnout than we did in the original governor's race. Most likely we will.
Do you want to talk about the local elections per se? School board, I mean, we do have 5 candidates running for 3 positions there. John Daggett, of course, is running for that, as well as Common Council and his district on the county board.
18th District County,
Ben Schneider is getting off the school board, and he's about the only negative voice, the only no voice that there seems to be there. Daggett, I don't know what to make of this guy. He seems to kind of be a contrarian to anything that is even remotely connected to the establishment, if you will.
Cheryl, he's also very litigious, so
be
careful what you say about him.
I know that. I said he seems to be. That's my opinion. So, I mean, this guy has run countless times for several different offices. With the political climate that's out there, so many people not being in favor of what they like to call rubber stampers, do you think that he has a shot at perhaps winning a seat on the school board?
One of the things I've noticed about Oshkosh, whether it's the Common Council or the school board, is that generally establishment candidates win. And for the school board, that means the candidates that school employees and people with children in the public schools favor. However, Oshkosh also seems to elect at least one contrarian. That might be B. Tyke Miller, it might be, Paul Eslinger. Now, sometimes it's as many as 2. And in an extreme case, if there's a major issue like garbage fee, maybe as many as 3. So the answer is that if you're unhappy with the school district, if you're unhappy with policy, you really only have that one choice. Electable, I would bet on it, but doing well, could be.
I have done some computer projections. If John Daggett continues to run every year for school board, he will win in 2022.
Well, I hope to be out of this state by then anyway, so it really doesn't much matter.
Okay, all right, well, I just...
Do you want to talk just for a moment about the, in our remaining time, about the two referendum questions?
We have a lot of $66 million referendum for Fox and $13 million.
For Oakwood.
Yeah.
I can't go to the, Iowa projections markets on this, but I don't think this is a good climate environment for either of those referendums. I think most people don't have an opinion about Fox Valley Tech, just simply because most people don't realize that technical colleges actually are governments with tax collecting powers.
It's different.
But once they do, I'm sure you're going to find some opinion about it. Many people may show up on election day wondering, what is this? But generally when that happens, they vote no.
But the other one they will
know about. The other one they will know about.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think the parents, and you've seen a lot of Parent Teachers Association representatives, and one of my colleagues' wives is, editorialized in the paper. Really, they should hope for a low turnout, because if the turnout is 15–20%, then you have a chance of the Oaklawn referendum passing. Once it goes to 30–40%, then you've got more people who don't have children in schools or have their children in private or parochial schools, and people who would want to see, other solutions to the problem, solutions that parents won't want, like redistricting, like consolidation, and so on. So.
Okay.
Jim, I've known you for, I think, 14 years, and I've always respected you as a longtime advocate of collective bargaining for higher education faculty. Is there any hope in the future?
I have to tell you that, what the governor did was take away most collective bargaining rights for state employees, but he took away all collective bargaining rights for university faculty. That hadn't even been popular when we had Democratic governors. Doyle was the first one who passed it, so I'm not optimistic.
I understand. Yeah. Thank you.
Talking about university faculty, I want to go back to the school board for just a minute, because one of the candidates who's running for school board is I think she's an associate professor at the university.
A counselor.
It just seems to me like, and I haven't met the woman, we haven't had her on yet, we will be doing interviews with the school board candidates, but, what in your opinion is the interest of all these people from the university getting on the local school board, and, do we run into a danger here with too many people from the world of academia on the school board?
You give us an inch and we take over. No, actually, the local county Democrats used to have a limit on the number of college employees who could hold office within the party. She is in the College of Education and Human Services.
Same as John Lemberger.
Yeah.
Same as John Lemberger. He may even have encouraged her to run for the office. And I'm sure John and she feel that they have a lot to bring in terms of expertise to the office. And she's on the faculty senate, so I know that she's smart, articulate. I think she'll make a very good school board member. From the standpoint of some of the critics of the school system, including Mr. Snyder, he's going to see her as another establishment figure.
Okay. All right. Well, on that note, we have to wrap things up. We will have you back after the election to see how these predictions have come out. Thanks as always, Jim. And that's going to do it for us.
Thanks, Jim.
We will see you next time. Until then, take care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.